Welcome. Today we will carry on from last month's session, and today we will go beyond having moved through the portal into the new beginning, and then work a little bit with what happens once we've kind of stepped into this new space. And very often in the spiritual journey, the big issue or problem or quest is to find the way into the next space. That could be into the space of initiation, that could be into the space of the underworld, so that deeper initiation, deeper connection can take place. That might be finding the door to the new life of a new sustained way of living, and that's kind of our focus today. So opening the doors is a powerful process. It's an important process, obviously, and sometimes it's a small opening that we create in our lives. Sometimes it's a huge opening that we create, a huge epiphany that comes, or a huge healing, or a huge release that allows us to enter a new space. But of course, the art then is, once we've stepped through this door, let's say into this palace, just speaking metaphorically, once you've stepped into this palace, then we've got to learn to maintain the palace. We've got to take care of its upkeep. And of course, in this case, metaphorically speaking, we're speaking about our own energy, our frequency. We're speaking about our health. We're speaking about cultivating an environment around us that sustains our growth, that supports our growth, that inspires our growth. So that's largely integration, but it's more than integration, because integration implies, okay, something happens after you've had this big experience, this big epiphany, this big release. Something happens, and then you've got to integrate that into your life. But beyond the actual integration, you've got to keep going. You've got to maintain and keep the renewal going. So one of the areas I think it's really important for us to think about in our own lives is seeing the bigger picture of our lives as our full creation. And then from there, constantly renewing, constantly being reborn, constantly changing, so that we can keep that space that we've created renewed and fresh and creative. But then within that bigger picture, through those little renewals, also creating space for the big renewals, those big epiphanies. Of course, that's in those moments when we do something like pilgrimage, or when we do something like very intense inner work. It's, we're doing that work to move through the portal to that next space. But the moving through the portal is in a way kind of only the means to the end. The real work begins when we enter that new room, that new space, when we've walked through the doorway, to then sustain that space and to keep it going, and to allow our lives to reflect that in an ongoing manner. So we're going to talk a little bit about the gods Vishnu and Zeus and the goddess Hera as representatives of this energy of sustaining, of maintaining, of expanding after we've experienced the renewal and the rebirth. And of course, Ganesha and Janus are the gods of the new beginnings, of walking through the doors, the gates. And then Vishnu, Hera, and Zeus are the gods, goddesses of holding that and allowing ourselves to kind of become big, to become great, not only in a psychological sense to become adults, but in the terms of our destiny, to become the best expressions of ourselves, so that we can fully flower, that we can reach full maturity. So we'll talk a little bit about those gods and goddesses today. We'll start off now with a brief visualization, and then at the end of the session we'll do a short breath work as well, just to ground some of that energy. So for this visualization, you can just remain seated. We're going to start by doing 20 breaths, closing our eyes. Let's start with 4 short breaths, 1 long breath, and then keep going, 4 sets of those. You can just follow me. So it's now just keep your eyes closed. Just feel your body. And of course, your body is your vehicle in this lifetime. And although it could be said that this lifetime is one of illusion and that it is transitory, our body is also our constant. Even though it changes, it's our constant in this lifetime, which implies that having good health and taking care of our body is important, not only to build it, to exercise it, to let it be healthy, but also to give it space to recover and calm down and feel that it has space to be. So the body needs exertion as well as relaxation. So we're just giving the body space now to relax, recover, restore. And yes, just take this moment to cherish your body. And now we will experience, feel our emotions. Just feel what emotions have been coming up in the last while. What have you been feeling? What has been with you? What has been bugging you, or what has been inspiring you? Just feel those emotions. Let those emotions fill you with just information about what those emotions want to say to you. They're coming up for a reason. They want to tell you something. So give them the space now to tell you. Maybe you're doing too much of something or too little of something. Maybe you're being too reactive, or maybe you're not reacting enough. And this could be reacting to inner impulses or to external factors. What are your emotions wanting to tell you? Now just take a deep breath and sigh out those emotions. Just let them go so that you can enjoy a neutral space, a space of peace, a space of calm. So you can just make some space for joy. You can let the joy of your truest being come in. Allow yourself to feel that joy of your truest being. Take a few deep breaths into that feeling. Now, just be aware of your mind, thoughts, worries, doubts. Be aware of your mind. And let those go. Let that activity in your head go as your mind synchronizes with your emotions, as your emotions synchronize with your body at peace. And As you open up, you're open to your soul, your spirit, your higher self. Allow yourself to expand beyond your body, beyond your ego, beyond who you thought you were, beyond your past, expanding into your soul, that bigger you, that broader you, that you don't even fully understand, that you can't ever fully know. It's a mystery, it's vast, yet it is your truest essence. It's the seed of who you are, so just open to your soul. Just open to that divine information, that divine possibility that your soul holds for you. So, feel your body, feel where you are, feel your soul. And we're just going to rise up a little bit from where we are seated. Your perspective is rising up above you, and from that perspective, you just look down on yourself, you look down on your body sitting in that room or outside. Because this is an all-seeing eye, you just see not only what your body's doing from above, but maybe you see what circumstances you're embroiled in. Maybe you see what emotions are fogging you, clouding you, what people are tied into your path. Maybe you just see all these energies as little cords or clouds, bubbles of energy sitting around your body as you look at your body from above. And you can just observe. It doesn't have to make sense. You don't need to know what this or that means. Now you're going to rise up a little bit higher so you get even more of perspective, and as you look, you'll see behind you is your past, and that kind of forms a line. It needn't be a straight line, but a line of all the different choices you made, the decisions you made that got you to this point. And see those decisions as energy as well. And the path might be windy, but it got you to the now where your body sits. And then just expand your vision to get a sense of the future, the unwalked path of your future. And now we're just going to choose a future. Maybe you see into the future a myriad of possible pathways. But you're just going to choose your future, a you that makes the decisions of growth, that chooses strength, self-expression, creativity, joy and love, as opposed to a you that might have chosen disappointment or anger or self-sabotage. So maybe you just see a timeline start to be highlighted, moving into your future. A timeline of your highest purpose, a timeline of your highest expression, highest frequency. Maybe that's the you that you always dream or hope that you could become. But maybe this factor or that issue or that thing from the past seems to get in the way of you creating that. So just brush aside the conditions and just choose a path into your future. It is your highest expression. Expresses your hopes, a reflection of your potential. So with this higher perspective that you're looking at your life now, I just want you to move forward along that timeline, just to the time before your death, a few days, a few hours. And of course, given that this is your highest timeline, this isn't a difficult death. It's a death of consciousness and awareness. And we're not going to go into the death, but we're going to take this as the point of culmination of your life. So maybe you see yourself as an older you. First of all, see yourself as very content, having lived a life that was fulfilling, having lived a life that was empowered, a life that was full of experiences, full of love, full of joy. And yes, there may have been some challenges along the way, that's fine. And yes, you might even get a sense of what some of the other possible choices could have been. But try and associate yourself with this you who's chosen higher frequency, higher potential, higher hope, higher love, highest expression. And with this higher perspective now, just sink down, going a little bit closer to this older you, seeing it, feeling yourself, feeling the circumstances of your life. And it doesn't matter if you're sort of making this up. What you're doing is you're projecting into the future, into a life that you would like to create. You're making connections into a life that you would like to create, as opposed to getting stuck in a life that you had no say in. So at this point, near the end of your life, in this highest future, just get a sense of what that bigger work has been in your life, looking back. What was your highest purpose? What were you put on the earth to do? It could be something very small, making a difference in small ways, making a difference in people's lives that you touch without you even realizing. It also can relate to the light and the love that you bring, that you've brought into the world, that you've worked to express. Get a sense of what that love is, that passion. What were the things that you did in your life that made your life worth living? What were the things you did in your life that felt not only fulfilling but divinely inspired, where you felt divinely carried, where there was flow, where there were possibilities, where opportunities came with ease and grace? And following that current, what was your true mission within this? What was your purpose? Why did you come into this world? What love did you come in to express? What passionate things did you come in to do? And being at this point, at the end of the timeline of this lifetime, looking all the way back to the present moment in 2025, looking back to that moment, maybe you get a sense of some of the things you could have done or should have done to make this path towards this culmination at the end of your timeline more effective. What could you have done better? Or what should you have known more about? What could have served you better along this path? What did you need to learn to make your mission clearer and more effective? See that. And just enjoy this sense of seeing yourself, being yourself, being the fullness of yourself. And feel those things that made your life worth living. Feel those things that made your life magnificent, beautiful, powerful, joyful. And perhaps this future you at the end of your timeline just has a message now for you. A message of encouragement, maybe some information that you need now, maybe some hope that you need to be reminded of. So let your future self talk to you. Give thanks to it, to you in the future. As you raise up against that future self, feeling the great sense of peace that your future self feels, knowing the time to pass over has come, the release time has come. But that's not necessarily something you need to look at now. Now you're just going to go back to this present moment here in 2025. Just come back, hover your awareness above your body where it's seated now. And just start to sink back into your body. Just feel how your awareness just takes possession of your physical body, settles in, finds incorporation, feels grounded, feels the pull of gravity. Good. So, as you settle into your body, perhaps there are just some other insights that come regarding this future self, regarding where you are now in comparison to your future self. Allow yourself to prepare to return. Just having some of the insights, the knowledge, the knowing. Good. Take a deep breath. Open your eyes gently. And just feel a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning in your life, in this moment. And of course, this bigger picture that we looked at through this visualization is about helping you establish what it is that's worth cultivating. Because let's remember this energy of kind of expansion, of stepping into our fullest self, is that constant process of growth. It's that constant process of cultivating. And we really do have a choice in this. Life doesn't just happen to us. I really believe that every step along the way we're given choices, and when we make those choices from a higher frequency or a higher understanding, and when we keep at it, when we keep bringing life to those choices through our practices, through our love, through our joy, through our showing up the whole time, we keep allowing that to grow. We keep allowing that growth process to bring about expansion. And yes, sometimes we need those big breakthroughs. Sometimes we need those big epiphanies to really jump us forward. And then from there, we make new choices because we have new information, and then we can allow that to continue to grow. So we're going to start off by drawing a card for this month, just some information, a little bit of insight as to what you might be dealing with, or what we as a collective are dealing with. So I'll choose this one here, and we've got Athena. That kind of ties in quite well, especially with the goddess, with the god Zeus, because Athena is Zeus's daughter, and Athena is kind of the upholder of Zeus's realm and of Zeus's teachings and energies. So Athena is the goddess of wisdom, the goddess of knowing, of having higher knowing in our lives so that we can make the right decisions. And then on the other hand, Athena is the goddess of strategic war, of strategy, of making the right choices, of having the courage to follow through on those right choices so that the wisdom can be put into practice, so that the wisdom can continue to expand in the world, that we live an informed life. You know, the kind of the opposite energy of Athena is also a war god, Aries or Mars. And Mars is a little bit more of the reactive war god, sort of reacting to a situation, being aggressive, but not necessarily thinking things through. And you know, there is of course a place for Aries. It's that energy of, you know, when you've got to just break through an open space, you've just got to move forward regardless. You've just got to do so with courage. Athena is more strategic. It's more of a planned process. There's not, let's say, an immediate threat, but there's a sense of, okay, I know I have to move forward. I don't have to do it immediately. I don't have to do it reactively, but I've got to move forward, and I've got to plan that forward movement so that I can kind of use my energy in the best way possible. Another way in which this card is very apt for our theme today is that principle of, you know, when a warrior, a spiritual warrior, enters the battlefield, we don't have time or space as spiritual warriors to, let's say, doubt the past or doubt the decisions we've made before. We've got to forge ahead with the vision. We've got to get a sense of what are we fighting for. You know, the other stuff back there, or the unimportant stuff, is actually not worth giving our energy to. So I think that's a really important question or theme you can work with today and in the weeks to come, is like, what are you fighting for at the moment? If you've got an end goal that you're fighting for, and again, you know, I'm using the word fighting loosely. You know, fighting in this context is, you know, where you're putting your intention into action, overcoming challenges in order to ground that intention. So what are you putting your energy into at this time? And, you know, obviously what you put your energy into, it's got to be important. It's got to have meaning for you. You've got to love it. So if you're putting your energy into this thing that you love, how can you cultivate that day to day? How can you keep that alive day to day and let it grow and expand? So we'll do a little bit more with that in the breathwork later, but I think that's a good theme to work with in this time, not only in your individual life but also as a collective. You know, it's like the world is kind of splitting off into all sorts of directions, strange directions. Some of them are, you know, truthful directions. Some of them are directions filled with lies and, you know, led by, you know, people who are maybe actively trying, you know, to mislead where humanity is going as a collective. And, you know, we don't need, as individuals, we don't need to go with the tide of the masses. And especially, I think, us, you know, people who are on a conscious path, we need to be conscious about who we align ourselves with, and conscious about creating our communities so that we can create the lives that make sense for us and that reflect our values. So this energy of sustaining growth, of expanding our growth in the world, relates very much to the Hindu god Vishnu on the one hand, and I'm specifically working with Vishnu to start off with today. I'll just very briefly talk about some of the symbolism of this god, because it carries on, of course, from the energy we worked with Ganesha last month. You know, Ganesha is about opening the doorway. Ganesha, even though it's not the same god as Brahma, but, you know, the god Brahma is a similar energy of starting. That's that trinity in the Hindu religion, where you've got Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the sustainer, and Shiva, the destroyer, or the bringer of rebirth. So that first step, of course, always, and we've got bigger cycles of these gods and we've got smaller cycles of these gods. So the Ganesha energy is initiating, opening the door. The Vishnu energy is of walking through the door and claiming ownership of that space. And that is one of the big lessons for us, I think, as individuals in our lives always, is claiming ownership of our lives, understanding the difference that we make in our own lives and in the lives of others. When we're children, it feels very much that we don't have a say, because we don't. Our parents kind of tell us what to do, or authority figures tell us what to do. And yeah, of course, that's appropriate in childhood, but then sometimes we can maintain an infantile mentality whereby we feel we don't have the say. And of course, the kind of the smallest building block of this is the small choices that we make. And in everything we have a choice. Maybe we can be in a situation that's difficult. There's only one way ahead, but we can still choose to do it with joy, or we can choose to do it with resentment. We obviously, in every situation, we've got choices as a situation unfolds, even though it might start off as being very one-tracked. At some point, choices do present themselves, and we need to become patient. And that is one of the big lessons of this Vishnu energy, of this energy of expansion, is the patience. The process of doing deep transformational work and having the deep insights, it's all very exciting. It's all wonderful, because we enter this realm of all possibility opening up for us. But again, once we've stepped through that doorway, once we've claimed ownership of this new realm, we've got to then sustain it. We've got to keep it going. And on the one hand, that takes our energy, that takes our continued attention. And that means showing up in our practices, showing up in our spiritual work, showing up in the mundane work that we do. And there are a few symbols of Vishnu that tie in with this. Vishnu is shown holding a wheel, the chakra. The word chakra in the body, the word chakra means wheel. So he's not holding our chakras, it's a chakra or wheel that he's holding. And that wheel represents the wheel of fortune in the tarot, or in Western mythology. That wheel of life, the wheel of growth, death, and rebirth. The wheel always returns to a similar point and then is reborn and then turns again. So as a symbol, that wheel is very powerful, because the wheel is whole at all times. The wheel exists, but where the wheel is keeps changing. And again, that is the principle of sustaining in our lives, is we have to kind of see ourselves as a wheel. We have a bigger picture of who we are as a soul, and I've often spoken about this before. When we enter life, we kind of enter as a circle. This might be the point of birth, and our life as an ego, or our life in a physical body, is the journey of going along the outside of the circle. And then at death, at this point here, we've traced the entire circle. And as we're going along this circle, it's a discovery. But that full circle is always there. We just haven't walked the full circle yet. But the fullness of the circle is still there. And that implies that we have kind of a fullness of identity, or a fullness of destiny. We just haven't walked the steps along that outer line of the circle or the wheel yet to have the full picture. So that implies many things. On the one hand, that implies that we kind of already have a knowing of who we are. We're just discovering that. And that implies as well that we're more powerful than we thought we were, that we have the information that we need. We've just got to keep going along that journey. And when we do the work of growth and expansion along the way, it's not necessarily that, it's not that the wheel changes. Our essence, that wheel doesn't change. We're the same, but we're perhaps just getting a broader vision of what that wheel is. So when we're doing, profound trance work, let's say, our vision is expanding, that we can get a better view of who we really are, of what our soul is, or what it wants for us. And then it makes that path along the outside of the wheel a whole lot easier, so that we can become more realized earlier on, so that we can enjoy that wheel better. And the other aspect of the wheel is, of course, that the wheel keeps turning. So even though we stay the same, circumstances change. Where that wheel goes changes, and that of course represents life out there. Life out there brings in new circumstances. Many of them are, of course, what we're attracting, what we're manifesting, what we're resonating with. But sometimes the wheel takes us to destined places where we need to learn a certain lesson, and that brings up a set of circumstances for us to learn that lesson. And of course, the lesson of that is, even when we go through challenges, some challenges might be brought on by our choices, some challenges might be destiny, but we always move on. The wheel always turns, and at some point we will be reborn. This too shall pass, and we will move beyond. So, the reason why we did that visualization a moment ago was to get a better sense of maybe where that wheel is taking us, or a better awareness of the nature of that wheel, of who we are, so that with that self-knowledge we can kind of use our energy better, or make better informed choices according to who we really are. One of the other symbols of Vishnu is the conch shell, and the blowing of that conch shell makes a very deep resonant noise, and that represents the sound Om, which is seen as the sound frequency that generates all reality, and it's kind of seen as the purest sound frequency. So when we chant Om, or when we connect to that resonant energy of Om, we are returning to our truest spiritual being. So it's almost like, if you take that wheel symbol, when we're in life and we're sort of walking along the outer edges of the wheel, we might be very focused on the task at hand and circumstances around us. But when that Om resonance happens, our awareness returns back to the hub of the wheel, and maybe greater awareness of what that wheel is, but it takes us back to the hub, the core, the frequency from which everything hangs, and that of course is our deepest, truest spiritual frequency. So that conch represents us returning to source and returning to our truest source. So yes, we need to walk the path of that wheel, but we also constantly need to return to our center. And that is not only our spiritual center, it's of course returning to our best health, returning to a place of being in harmony with ourselves, with our world, with our bodies, because we can only keep turning as this wheel, we can only keep going forward if that wheel is integral and if that wheel is strong. So that implies, the meditation practice is the way for us to reconnect to our strength, but also to our essence, which is beyond the ego. So it's kind of a bit of both. It's about strengthening ego, but it's also about going beyond ego, so that we can return to our truest power. And then the other symbol of Vishnu is the lotus flower. That's also the symbol of the Buddha and enlightenment. And the Buddha is seen as an avatar of Vishnu. So, Buddhism isn't really separate from Hinduism. Some Buddhists would say they're not Hindu. most Hindus could say that they follow the teachings of Buddha at the same time. It's kind of very much within the same philosophy. Buddha was just kind of a sage or a master that developed a new practice and a new way within Hinduism. And again, Vishnu's kind of the sustaining force within Hinduism. Of course, you don't need to be Hindu to learn from these philosophies. These are broader principles that we can all apply in our lives. So the lotus symbol represents purity. It's the purity of the flower, this magnificent flower. And if you've seen a lotus flower, they're about this big and they're absolutely gorgeous. But they grow in the mud, they grow in murky water, and they kind of float in this water. And that murkiness of the mud represents the ego, the messiness of the ego and of the personality. And then the lotus represents the aspiring to the enlightenment, the aspiring to a higher purpose. And that higher purpose remains unstained by the mud that is below. And again, that kind of speaks on the one hand of spiritual practice. By continuously developing our spiritual faculties, our spiritual connections, we kind of grow into the light of the divine more, and that messiness down there doesn't drag us down. But the reminder, of course, is that the lotus is sustained by the messiness down there. Or it doesn't need to be the messiness, but it's the density. It's the density of our physical body, of our being in this physical world. So it's kind of saying, we can't just deny the physical world and deny our issues. Those two are connected. The lotus on top, the roots at the bottom, are connected by the stem. So we kind of need both of those energies to grow. It's the same principle as a tree, even though the symbolism is a little bit different. That's the same principle of heaven on earth. It's our roots are in the earth, our roots are in our body. But, we as souls are looking up at the stars, we're looking up to the heavens for our inspiration. And one could almost say, the roots and where we come from is the raw materials that we inherit. It's where we come from, it's our ancestry. But the branches or the lotus, that the outgrowth of the roots is our higher destiny, what we're aspiring to in our lives, what our soul wants for us, as opposed to what our genetics or our heritage want for us. So again, in bridging those two worlds, it's all about choices. We could choose just to stay in the roots and then not flower, or we could choose to look up and see what other possibilities are out there for us. Which implies that we are not set or determined by where we come from or what we have been. And I think, early on in one's spiritual path, we have the tendency to want to really change and transform all those difficult things, and we need to transform them. But they are also still part of us. We don't want to deny them or turn our back on them or destroy them. It's like that messiness gives us the roots and the nutrients for our growth. So we are dual beings in that sense, and we need to stay rooted in who we truly are in order for us to really flower and flourish and go beyond where we've been. So that's a very brief look at Vishnu. Then just briefly to look at Zeus and Hera, who are the Greek, I wouldn't say equivalents, but similar energies. Zeus is the god of heaven, and Hera is the goddess of heaven, his wife, and they are the divine masculine and feminine. Zeus is the energy of fertilizing, through his thunderbolts, and then Hera is the energy of nurturing those thunderbolts. And the symbolism we're going to work with in today's breathwork is Hera as Mother Earth, is the Mother Earth of our body, the Mother Earth of our health, the Mother Earth of the life around us. And then Zeus is the energy of that lightning, of those thunderbolts coming in and planting the seeds, fertilizing with the light, with the divine, fertilizing the earth in order to create an alchemy, in order to create something new that is beyond what has always just been. And in the context of our theme today, Zeus represents that energy of constantly fertilizing, watering the earth of our being, the earth of what we stand for in this life, the energy that we looked at earlier in this visualization. It's like, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is what I wish to expand. But I constantly need these little renewals, this passion, this new light to come in to keep fertilizing my path ahead. Of course, the energy of Vishnu, for example, with the wheel, that wheel is never about becoming stagnant or becoming set and stuck. The wheel keeps turning. The wheel, in essence, is solid, but it keeps turning. And that Hera Zeus symbolism speaks to that, because the Zeus brings in the energy of constant renewal, even though it's to that broader picture that Hera represents. So we're going to do a breath work. For this, I think it's good to lie down, because we want to go into that space of just being ourselves, and then expanding that, and then being open to receiving those thunderbolts of energy. So just close your eyes, and we're just going to start breathing. Keep going like this, and just remembering that you're breathing energy into your body, prana into your body, your physical life. And as you keep breathing in this way, the breath feeds your physical body, the breath feeds the deep unconscious of who you are, allowing it to become more balanced, more healthy, because your breath holds prana, and this prana is life force energy. This prana is intelligent, it knows which parts are unbalanced, it knows which parts need feeding, need to be shifted. Which parts are toxic, which parts are required for your growth. So in this first phase, we're just breathing into the body, breathing into that Mother Earth broadness of who we are. Physical body is our direct connection to Mother Earth. And this first phase is just letting your body be. Doesn't have to do anything, doesn't need to be anything. Just breathing prana in. Letting that earth become more fully itself. Letting that earth become more whole. So now you can just keep the breathing strong. With every exhale, you're just spreading this energy of the prana that you're breathing in throughout the rest of your body. Breathing the energy in and spreading it throughout your body. That is making the earth of who you are come alive. And now we're going to breathe a little bit faster together, but now as we breathe faster, the in-breath, I want you to imagine light or lightning moving down your spine. On the inhale and on the exhale, that fertilizing light spreads throughout the earth, spreads throughout your body. Keep that breathing going. It's a connected breath, meaning there's no pause. It's a gentle breath, but it's a faster breath. So the in-breath is taking the lightning in, the out-breath is spreading that fertilizing light energy throughout the body, throughout your earth. Just sustain that breathing. It's a faster breathing. It might take a little bit more energy, a little bit more work. Just keep it going, keep it constant. Sustain breathing. And with that sustained breathing, planting lots of little seeds of light, little seeds of love in your body, in your cells. Planting these seeds of illumination in your life. It's lighting the way, it's creating space for growth, it's dropping hints, signs, guiding the way. Just keep going with that flow. This flow of your breath is enlightening you. It's creating the energy in your body and being to sustain you, to sustain your growth. So now we'll take the breathing a little bit deeper. And in this deeper breathing, you've gone out of the phase of shaking things up, and now you're going into the phase of letting those seeds that you've planted grow, letting them germinate and flourish. And this might relate very directly to areas of your life that you want to think about and actually give a flourishing energy to in your breathing, fertilizing certain areas. Be it relationships that you want to transform or enhance, or be it work and abundance that you want to stimulate, or be it spiritual connection that you want to open and strengthen. Your breaths now are physical acts that you're taking of enhancing and sustaining this growth, this expansion. Your breath is symbolic of the other areas of your life that you're feeding. Breath is literally feeding them, feeding your body so that you're healthy and have strength. And when you're healthy and when you have strength, you have abundant energy, which allows other areas of your life to grow. And as you start growing, you start flourishing. And as you flourish, you enjoy the beauty of the flowers that you generate. You harvest the fruits of your life, of what you're creating, and then you can be sustained by that fruit, which gives you even more energy, which takes you even further. And it all starts now with this breathing. This breathing is a magical process of propagating energy, of sending energy forward into that Vishnu energy of sustaining, of flourishing, expanding. It's that sacred marriage between Zeus and Hera, of the earth giving life to the seeds of light, growing, expanding through your breath. And as I sing now, just keep breathing, keep it strong, allowing yourself just to become rich and full and satisfied. It's all going to be all right, just as they always said. The sun returns after the night. The darkness we took for the dead nurtures the seed of the light, just as the prophets agreed. Redemption comes after the blight, and the sun is reborn as a living tree that reaches back up to the light. Fine flowers give form to heavenly creed, and the deep restful sleep of the night is fertile soil for the spiritual seeds. It's all going to be all right, just as they always said. The sun returns after the night. The darkness we took for the dead withdraws with the dawn of the light. A new day is filled with God's love living deeds, and the goddess of earthly delights brings bountiful growth to the spiritual seed. You can just let go of your breathing now. You can just be in your body, feeling energized, feeling lit up from within. Sense of satisfaction that you've planted these seeds of light within yourself, and that they will grow when the time is right. They will grow when necessary. Perhaps you get a sense of where you went to earlier on in that visualization, at that culmination point at the end of your life, where your greater mission is clearer, where you have a greater sense of what that wheel of your being truly is. Connect with that, with your bigger purpose. Connect with the things that make your life worth living. The passion that makes you wake up in the morning with joy and excitement and anticipation. Making space for that in your life. Making more space for the love in your life. Cultivating that love. Letting the light emerge, show itself throughout your life, guiding the way, illuminating the way. Give thanks to your soul. Give thanks to those sustaining energies of Vishnu, of Zeus, of Hera. And pray that your path of truth, your path of love may be protected and sustained, that it may be held in safety, that it may grow in abundance. Now just take a deep breath. Gently open your eyes if you want. If not, you can just stay inside a little bit longer, coming back in your own time.